Welcome everyone to the Lawyers Committee and the Truth Action Project program. Today's program is called Recognizing and Pushing Back the Post 9/11 Police State. Our next speaker is Ray McGovern. Ray is a former Central Intelligence Agency officer turned political activist. Ray was a CIA analyst from 1963 to 1990, and in the 1980s, he chaired the National Intelligence Estimates and prepared the President Daily Brief. He received the Intelligence Commendation Medal in retirement. Ray will discuss pre- and post-intelligence back to basics. Ray McGovern.
I'm from New York, right? I was born in the Bronx. My wife was born in Brooklyn. She married up. I left New York, but not in spirit. Especially when 9/11 happened, my wife lost a cousin on top of one of those buildings. What I'm going to do here is avoid the temptation to talk about dancing Israelis or things like how it is that our police forces are now trained by Israeli defense forces as to how to treat Untermenschen, like Palestinians. But I am going to go to the core of things because we need to talk about how this kind of thing can happen. All right, well, why would people do these kinds of things, you know? I mean, who would do this kind of heinous thing? And how about the aftermath? The incredible aftermath, which involved wars of aggression, war crimes against Iraq and Syria. Who would benefit from that kind of thing, knowing that that kind of thing might be likely? Well, let me just suggest that I'll give you a couple of for instances. That's what we do in the Bronx. We provide for instances, which are a pretty good pedagogical technique, actually. May I have the first slide, please? Let me introduce it by simply saying that as the 9/11 Commission was preparing its report, and I know some of the people who were on that commission, they were deathly interested, very interested in why Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the already identified mastermind of this thing, why would he do such a thing? And then they found out from the Washington Post that he had been captured. So they went to the CIA operatives and said, let's interview him, find out why he did this thing. And the CIA, no, we'll interview him, and we'll give you something of what he says. Well, what he says is this. It appears on page 147 of the 9/11 Commission report. By his own account, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's animus toward the United States stemmed not from his experience there as a student, but rather from his violent disagreement with US foreign policy favoring Israel. Now that made it onto page 147 of the Commission report. It was unique in the respect that nobody really followed up on that. Now, the CIA had done a study saying, you know, it's really a problem of how the Muslims hate us, and we ought to get to the bottom of that problem. But nobody would identify the problem, okay? It's very, very sensitive in Washington and New York and just about everywhere in the United States until the Defense Science Board. This is an interesting instance here. The Defense Science Board is a board picked by the Pentagon. It's usually, as you can imagine, amazingly conservative, but it's science. Like, you know, I believe in science, and these guys do too, and they look for causes and effects. And so they came out with this incredible report in September of 2004, right after the 9/11 Commission report. And here's what it said. Could we have the second slide, please? Okay, try to visualize this as one paragraph, okay? And remember, George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, all of them would say they hate our freedom, they hate our democracy, they hate us, they just hate us, right? Okay. Well, here's what the Defense Science Board said. Muslims don't hate our freedom. Rather, they hate our policies. The overwhelming majority voiced their objections to what they see as one-sided support in favor of Israel against Palestinian rights, and the long-standing, even increasing support for what Muslims collectively see as oppression, notably Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Pakistan, and the Gulf states. Last sentence. Thus, when American public diplomacy talks about bringing democracy to Islamic societies, this is seen very much as self-serving hypocrisy. Wow. This, an unclassified report, not only saying, you know, the Muslims don't like us much, we ought to look at maybe our policies without defining those policies. Here's an organ of the Pentagon, even though it's, you're not integral to the Pentagon, saying what everybody who's looked at this situation honestly has concluded. Now, what needs to be said about this? Well, that was September 23rd, 2004, right? Now, did the Washington Post or the New York Times feature this? Well, actually, no, they kind of ignored it. But on November 23rd, 2004, the New York Times stepped up to the plate, and with an article, and they reported on this report in vague terms, and then they said, please look at the first sentence, and now look at the last sentence. They excised the middle sentence. And it wasn't a matter of shortening it. I mean, they had the first sentence, they had the third sentence, they just excised the middle sentence. Now, hello, that's why Americans are completely unaware of what drives this hatred. And if they don't become well aware of it and know that we give Israel $3.8 billion in military supplies so that they can do what they're doing, and that the Muslims know that the Iranians and the Iraqis and the Syrians all know that, then, you know, it's going to happen again, folks. It's going to happen again. Now, let me just say a word about.
We found a horse around there in England for Bali. And
I'm hearing sounds, but I'll sort of override them unless you identify.
Yeah, please turn your mic off. Somebody's in here with a mic on. It shouldn't be.
Okay. Now, this is not the kind of thing that's usually said in polite society, but I don't need some money, and I'm not running for office. These are the facts, okay? These are the cold, stark facts. Now, after the 9/11 Commission report came out, it was July 22nd, 2004, I was lined up by the BBC to give some commentary on it. And I found myself in this blue room with Senator Slade Gorton from the state of Washington, who was one of the commission members. And I had a minute to say, now, Senator Gorton, this whole business about nobody has the authority to make the intelligence community work, come on, that's a lot of bull, you know that. The director of Central Intelligence at that point, George Tenet, he had the authority. All he had to do was use it. And he looked at me and he smiled and he says, yeah, I know that. We all know that. We had to be seen to be doing something about 9/11. And George Tenet wouldn't do it. And so we created a new superstructure, the National Intelligence Director. Man, you could see what kind of mischief that has caused. So it wasn't a question of not having the authority to do it. It was a question of not actually grappling with that effect. Let me just add one thing here. Sometimes when you live in Washington, you get chances to mingle with the muckety-mucks, as my Irish grandmother would say. And I'm at a concert, and I come down at the intermission, and there's Senator John Warner, walking along in the courtyard. And my wife says, Ray, that's Warner. So I go out there and I said, Senator Warner, Ray McGovern, we met in Moscow in '72 for the strategic arms limitation conclusions. And you may not remember, but I gave you my seat at the Bolshoi. Do you remember? Well, no, I don't remember, but very nice to meet you. And he grabs my, he's a avuncular guy, you know, he's just finishing up his 30th year as a U.S. Senator, grabs my arm, and I say, now, Senator Warner, I'm really afraid. Here it is, 2008. We already established in the intelligence community that Iran stopped working on a nuclear weapon at the end of 2003. And I'm definitely afraid that the Israelis are going to start a dust-up with Iran before
Ray, there's some interference in the background. I don't know why that is. Whomever is making that noise, turn it off, please.
Okay.
Folks, it's actually, what's happening is new people keep coming to the meeting, and so each one is coming in now seemingly with an unmuted mic. So I'm just doing it. It's about 5 people in the last couple minutes.
Okay, anybody's in the room, please mute your mic, okay? So Ray can finish his talk. Ray, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. We got new people coming in and they had their mics open. Okay, thanks.
Change the setting, David, so that they'll be muted upon entry.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, do I get a minute or two?
Take another 5. Go ahead.
Good. All right. So I say to Senator Warner, who's got my arm, you know, he's walking along with me as though I'm a good friend now. And I said, Senator Warner, I'm really worried that the Israelis are going to start an attack on Iran and draw us into it before Bush and Cheney leave office. My God. You want to know what tangible or tactile is the better word? There was no blood going through my arm. Senator Warner had my arm in a vice. And he said, what did you say? I said, well, I think Israel. I'm like, oh, it got even stronger. And finally he said, oh, Joe, hello there. And he dropped my arm and bumped off. So I said to myself, my God, here's a much honored senator, 30 years, senator from Virginia, head of the Armed Services Committee, distinguished and not running for re-election. And I mentioned the word Israel, and he grabbed my arm, and there's no blood pumping through there. My God, what a tactile, what a tangible example of what happens when even someone who has nothing to lose, for God's sake, here's the word Israel, is so preconditioned not to want to deal with the problem. So just kind of finishing up here, it becomes really so obvious, but only to those of us who look. Now, you don't have to believe me. Trump, I don't have the thing in front of me, but 5 days ago in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Trump was bragging about energy self-dependence. So we don't have to worry about oil in the Middle East anymore. The only thing we're in the Middle East for is to protect Israel. We're fine. And the only thing, he says it 3 times, we're only there to protect Israel, right? Okay, now, that was headlines in the New York Times, right? No. Headlines, what? It was complete. How many of you heard that? Well, if you're not tuned into Mondevice, the website that handles these kind of things, you would never know he said that. So we have the media against us in getting at the cardinal issues here. The cardinal issues are the ones that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed elucidated when he was asked, why did you do this? And, you know, the young people that interrogated him had the book on him, like he has an engineering degree in mechanical engineering from the University of North Carolina in Greensboro. Oh, he must have had an affair of the heart there. He must have been dissed by his girlfriend, or maybe they made fun of him wearing that crazy hat, or, you know, he must have had a really bad experience in North Carolina. Well, as you saw from that quote, it wasn't his student days in North Carolina. It was his extreme hatred, his extreme reaction the U.S. policy favoring Israel. And I'll just finish here by saying that there's going to be no difference no matter who wins. There's going to be additional grievances with respect to what's happening to the Palestinians, what's happening to other people who are pressed by Israel. There's going to be increasing pressure on people like me not to say these things. When I testified in Congress one time, I said, you know, you all keep referring to Israel as our ally. That's wrong. Israel's not our ally. Look, what do you mean? I said, yeah, look in the Webster's. An ally is someone with whom your country has a mutual defense treaty. And there isn't any, okay? Now, I happen to know from my former colleagues that we offered Israel a mutual defense treaty. This was after the Arabs did attack Israel in '73. And the Israelis said, well, thanks, that's so kind, but thanks, but no thanks. Now, why would the Israelis refuse what any other country of the world would love to have, a mutual defense treaty with the United States? Well, two reasons. One is that, you know, they like to kind of be on their own, and they'd much rather go ahead and attack Syria or Iraq without having to ask the permission or even coordinate with the other member of this alliance, it would be at that point. And another would be, as one wag said, that, you know, if there were you know, it just wouldn't work for the Israelis because they have what they need now. And people talk about, we'll make them a 51st state. And the smart money says, well, you know, that wouldn't work either for the Israelis because then they'd only have two senators. That's a joke, folks, but this is no joking matter. If we don't get to the bottom of this, if we are prevented from addressing this issue by the press, which is so slanted against, well, in favor of Israel, we'll never get to the bottom of it. And sure as can be, mark my words, there'll be another 9/11, and it won't be nice, but we'll know a little bit more, hopefully, about why and how to react in a more reasonable manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you very much. Our next